Welcome to our channel. Get ready for a collection of incredible stories that will send shivers down your spine.
Wake up!
If you love mystery and horror, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring you more thrilling content. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into the stories.
Open your eyes.
Who comes to visit in the morning? Only a fool friend who once again goes to rescue his comrade from another disaster. And that fool friend was me. 7 o'clock in the morning, in a blizzard, with the wind literally blowing you away. I can't help it, I'm too kind a man to abandon those I care about. It's a long way to the far end of the village, which makes the walk even more entertaining. I've only walked a short distance, it seemed like I'd never make it at all. I'll get stuck somewhere in the middle of the road and turn into a snowman, and they'll find me some time later when they're digging up the streets. I hope they'll recognize me for sacrificing myself to the unruly weather for a friend and make me a saint. I came out of the incident unharmed and stood at the gate, demanding to open it.
What does it mean?
Colleen, my friend's name, did not answer. The door was open, I didn't expect it myself, pulling the handle. Cole? Colleen, where are you?
So familiar.
I shouted at the top of my voice, though the wind muffled my call.
Cursed sanctuary.
I tried to reach the porch of the house, and I noticed that the light was barely on in the bathhouse. I went straight there, and at that moment a hand was on my shoulder. I'm sorry, I'm not quite awake yet, here's Kolya.
One day I'll have a quiet
But I'm
night.
awake, I resented him, so why
night.
did you call?
Probably when I'm dead.
Let's go to the house, we'll talk there.
Need to wash.
I obediently
Victoria will be
followed
here
my
soon.
friend. I don't even
all
know where
these
to start,
years.
Kolya began uncertainly.
Mr. Harrison,
From the very
I'm
beginning,
glad you finally
please.
answered my call.
In detail
I've been
and
ever so
without clever
patient.
words, I sat
His
down at
affairs
the
won't
table,
matter soon.
watching my friend
Can you
making
feel it in
tea.
your blood?
I noticed
Something
that
is
somehow
stirring.
he was moving a little strangely. He was stiff, sluggish, like a rag doll.
Find me beyond the
I didn't
gate.
pay much attention,
before the
I
black
thought
day.
it was because of what had happened, what he'd called me for. Now I'm just not sure if I should even tell you about it. What if you think I'm crazy? Kolya put the cups of tea on the table and sat down next to me. Kolya, I'm going to hit you, I said grudgingly, taking a sip of tea and choking on it. The tea was salty, and
What
too
a journey.
salty.
Africa
I looked at
proved to
my
hold
friend
our
in
best
surprise, raising an eyebrow. Since when do you drink salty tea? Oh, I'm sorry, I mistook sugar for salt, he smiled innocently, pushing his cup away. Is someone living in my bathhouse? It's been so long since you've cleaned it that you've got a bathhouse, man? I grinned. The mage, if only. Kolya shook his head. Maybe he
Cold in
does,
here.
but he's not human.
Need to find
I was
that
frightened
damn
by my
draft.
friend's tone. He tried to squeeze out emotion, but it was only a little mechanical. Again, he wrote it off, because of some unknown events connected with the bathhouse. It all started 2 weeks ago. Saturday evening, you know, you can't break traditions, so I decided to take a steam bath. I had no time to come in and start preparing for the bath, but suddenly something jumped on me and bit my leg so hard, I lifted my pant leg, showing a very big scar, as if from a dog bite. Damn me, was the only thing he could say. I'm of the same opinion. Thankfully, Uncle Volodya was there to help me get home. We called an ambulance, even the cops. The latter called the animal trapping people. And you're telling me the specialists didn't help? Sort of. They put it down, shot it, did everything but nothing. What kind of animal is in the bathhouse? I'd like to know. I tried to comprehend the essence of what Nicholas told me, but I cannot catch the logic. There's no such thing as an animal that can't be killed. There's got to be something wrong. Well, what does this have to do with me? I asked a very logical question, what can I do to help? Kolya looked at me with a hazy look. His lips twitched a little. Come in. Just come in. You want to feed me to that strange animal? Come in. Just come in, Kolya repeated. He got up from the table and walked toward me, still staring at me with his creepy gaze. I stood up myself, grabbing a chair. I was frightened by my friend's behavior, it smelled like kerosene. Colleen, what's wrong with you? Are you all right? Grabbing the chair firmly, I pointed towards my friend, preparing to hit him in case of anything. Meanwhile, Kolya's face began to change. His cheeks had fallen sharply, and I could see something like flesh through his skin. At last I realized that there was something wrong. I threw the chair at the so-called Kolya and ran out of the house, heading for the bathhouse. Yes, I was scared, but I was also curious what was in the bathhouse. The smell of burning flesh and iron hit my nose. Inside, the bathhouse looked like a slaughterhouse, and my friend Kolya was in the middle of it. His stomach had been ripped open, from where some of his insides had leaked out, and he had no eyes. His legs completely nibbled to the bone. In some places, his skin was scorched. Nearby was a mincemeat of bones and meat. Most likely what was left of Uncle Volodya. I froze in horror, trying to hold back the gagging. Jesus, Kolya. He's still alive. He raised his head and looked at me blindly, mooing something, but his mouth was swollen from the inside. An acrid transparent substance dripped from the purple swollen lips, exposing a large growth of an incomprehensible color. There was a nasty howl from outside. I cautiously peered out the window, and hid sharply behind the wall. What was pretending to be my friend was headed this way, to the bathhouse. Something that looked like a cockroach with a height slightly larger than a man.
Victoria! Victoria!
Holding my breath, I huddled in the corner,
By some
praying to
cruel
all the
mercy,
gods that this something
I'm
wouldn't
alive.
notice me. The door creaked softly, a few shuffling steps, and silence. I closed my eyes, hoping it would pass.
Kingsport.
As if it wouldn't.
Looks deserted.
I felt something hard on my
Is that
shoulders, like claws.
Corpse?
When I opened my eyes,
And that
the monster's
hell if I
face was in
washed up.
front of me, humanoid and grotesque, with a jaw stretched forward with sharp shark-like teeth and a bulging forehead. It stared at me with beady eyes, chittering, and brought it toward me with the express purpose of devouring me. By some miracle I was able to push it away and run out of the yard.
Another body.
There was nowhere to run. The same creatures
What
jumped out
now?
from everywhere,
This
heading in
buffalo
my
still
direction.
comes to life.
They were not afraid of the snow or the wind, and they were coming toward me with a firm gait. I fell to my knees, throwing back my head. I felt no cold, only the approach of my death. I wondered how long they had been in the village. And that was just one chilling tale, but we're not done yet. Get ready, because the next story might be even more terrifying. Down, left, down, left, down, left, down, left. The endless zigzag of the street. Empty houses stand along the road. Sometimes voices come from these houses. I'm alone. Wandering through a dark world. A different world, different from the present one, full of people, cars, and houses. This world is full of horror, grotesque, sadness. The clouds overhead are thickening. It's
Not deserved
completely
after
dark,
all.
you have to stare to see anything.
Feral nuts.
There's a barking sound. Loud and gurgling. There's a dog in the backyard of a house looking at me. It looked like it had been boiled alive, and for far too long. No fur, just skin covered in slime. Its eyes were whitish. Sharp, sharp teeth protruded from its mouth. I quickened my step. Down, left, forth. I'd better go right. Maybe that way I could get out and break the endless zigzag of streets. But I was wrong. Nothing like that happened. There was no way out in this world. Once you're in, you can't get out. You'd only have to die. A giant cross of human bodies appeared ahead, covered in blood and feces in some places. It smelled of corpses and waste. I had to cover my nose to avoid inadvertently smelling the foul odor, and quickly walked past it. The intersection. I don't know where to go. I'm already desperate, because there's no way out. But I have to keep going. On and on. Until my legs give out. I walk straight ahead. Creepy creatures look out of the windows of the houses. Completely white, bald, faceless, and naked. They watch me intently, even though they have no eyes. They don't need sight, and they sense me so well. I don't pay attention to them. I try to, at least. Children ran past me, looking like porcelain dolls. They were joined together with strings, as if they wanted to make Siamese twins. Their little feet thumped loudly on the road. The children were laughing merrily with their mouths open, running and jumping, but they didn't notice me. Thank goodness. An endless straight road. It got a little brighter. The wind hummed its sad melody with leaves and dry grass. A humming sound was heard overhead. Looking up, I saw a skull floating in the sky. It slowly opened and closed its mouth, making an eerie rumbling sound. I stopped to follow it. And until the skull disappeared from sight, I stood there, continuing my observation. The fog. Smoke began to engulf the world. In this fog, silhouettes could be seen. Hard to make out. There's no time to look at them now. Although, there's no way out anyway. I stopped, spread my arms out to the sides, and closed my eyes. The ground shook beneath my feet. This was my end. The fog has already consumed me, I can feel it. It's time. And that was just one chilling tale, but we're not done
Finally,
yet.
some sign of life.
Get ready,
You
because
there.
the next story might be even more terrifying. The hot summer day was coming to an end. Evening gloom gradually enveloped the village, and with its onset, the sky was covered with leaden clouds. The first drops fell. Lightning flashed in the distance, cutting the sky like a sickle, and the ground was shaken by thunderclaps. Drop by drop, the drizzle was replaced by a coarse drumbeat that thudded against the roof with monstrous force, as if trying to penetrate it and get inside. I hate the
Steady
rain.
now. I don't want to
The
see your
gloom.
brain leak out of all your
The damp.
orifices.
Mud. Standing at the window, watching this scene, I shivered. Usually in this kind of weather, you want to eat, and sleep. In this regard, I was pleased with the decision to go on a little trip to a mystical place called Kitchen. Why mystical? Yes, at least because you go there supposedly for 5 minutes, and that's it. Consider it gone, you find yourself hours later, sitting at the table and stuffing your stomach with various delicious things. The aroma of a delicious dinner of baked rabbit with vegetables filled my respiratory system, which made drool run down my chin involuntarily. My father had always been a strong cook. He may have enjoyed it, but he was my only parent, so life had taught him a lot. I don't remember my mother at all, she died when I was 4. According to my father, she drowned in the river in about the same weather, was swept away by the current, and the body was never found. We sat down at the table and dined in silence, each of us thinking about our own things, to the sound of drops hitting the metal roofing like nerves. Cap. Drip. After a while, I realized that my eyelids had become many times heavier, stubbornly trying to send me to the world of dreams, so my instincts pulled me to my room, not forgetting to thank my dad for the delicious food. I fell asleep like a baby before I even reached the pillow. That night, my father disappeared without a trace. The morning after discovering his disappearance, the first thing I did was to call the neighbors, asking if he had met them. Yes, you could think, and why did I even decide that he disappeared, and not gone on business, no matter what kind of people have worries and problems? Such thoughts visited me, but it should be noted, there was one oddity, or to be more precise, several. The first was that outside the window was the same bad weather, the clouds as if curious continued to pour out their insides, turning the soil into a chugging mess. Well, that's okay. But to go out into such elements, without bothering to put on boots and a raincoat, or a jacket at the very least, was, at the very least, incongruous. All his belongings were left at home, including his cell phone, which is extremely unlike him. I spent about 4 hours on the phone, calling practically all the villagers, or rather, those whom I knew and at whom my father could have sagacity, but all to no avail. The seemingly harmless rain was now turning into a real disaster, and with it grew anxiety. For the next couple of hours I walked like on pins and needles, wandering around the house, then looking through the windows, then going out on the porch, smoking and watching in the distance as far as possible, for the dense wall of rain not badly so limited the view. My gut told me that something had happened or should happen, and it never failed me. I remember climbing a water tower with my boys, near an abandoned factory. It was a kind of entertainment for us, to climb to the top and shout, "I am the king of the world." But that time it was different, as if an inner voice whispered, "Stop, don't do it," and I listened to it, despite the jeers of my friends and displays of cowardice. As a result, the rusty iron ladder could not bear the load, with a creak fell off and collapsed down, taking with it the lives of 2 of my comrades. There were many such cases, but again my instincts protected me every time. At that moment I felt as if some danger was lurking somewhere nearby and waiting for its time. In fact, it was so. The evening was creeping up, and with it panic, enveloping me more and more. As much as I didn't want to, I had to call the police and report the disappearance of my ancestor, although I realized that it would hardly change anything. Andrei Petrovich is smug, hypocritical, and lazy to the extent that even on the clearest sunny day you can't make him lift his woolly balls from his chair, what to speak of the current storm outside the window. Waiting for an answer and taking air into my lungs, I began to tell what was going on, but my interlocutor interrupted me without letting me finish. What he said shocked me, and my body was gripped by fear, primal, clammy, and cold. A colossal number of goosebumps ran all over my body, and my legs gave out, making me stagger and sit down on the first chair I could find. Are you all in on this? You're the 7th person to report a missing person today. That phrase played over and over in my head for several minutes while I sat in the chair and stared at the same spot. Hello? Hello? It was coming from the phone, but I didn't react, I was paralyzed. 7 people are missing, I said it out loud, still sitting motionless and with my mouth open. The realization that all this is not for nothing came at once, because even a fool would understand, okay, there is one missing, things happen. But 7, it already smells like hell, no other way. After sitting at the table for some time and being all in thoughts, I was knocked out unnoticeably for myself. A knock on the window, short, not loud, but distinct, pulled me out of sleep. I thought it was just a branch from a nearby tree, or a branch from a nearby tree had crashed into the window under gusts of wind. But just in case, I decided to check. Outside the window was impenetrable darkness, only sometimes lightning flashed, embracing the entire sky, turning it into a huge web and illuminating the area for many kilometers. As you might expect, I could see nothing but darkness. However, when the lightning flashed once again, I was able to see something. The silhouettes of people. They were everywhere, and there were many of them. Some were on the road, others near the neighbor's house, a couple of them at my gate. They were just standing still, as if waiting for something. Suddenly, one of them leaned against the window. I jumped back in surprise, shrieking like a girl. My heart was pounding like a madman, and it felt like it was about to jump out of my chest and crawl away. When I looked more closely, I could see my father standing in the darkness outside the window, looking out. After a few moments, I realized something was wrong. His face, it was different, pale, and his eyes were covered with a white veil. His mouth was twisted horribly, and a red substance oozed from it, reminiscent of blood. He made incomprehensible noises, clacking his jaw and running his palm over the glass, staring at me with his lifeless eyes. Our staring lasted about a minute, and then he started pounding on the glass with his hands and head, smashing his face into meat. Then the others joined him. I was surrounded on all sides, and these devils had managed to climb up to the roof and bang on it with inhuman force. The door was taken out with its hinges, and the windows were all shattered. It would seem that you could go in, but everything stopped in a moment and there was silence. The freaks stood motionless as before, as if they had been unplugged. As for me, I just stood in the middle of the room and watched in horror and didn't even try to do anything. Are you all in on this? You're the 7th person to report a missing person today. That phrase played over and over in my head for several minutes while I sat in the chair and stared at the same spot. Hello? Hello? It was coming from the phone, but I didn't react, I was paralyzed. 7 people are missing, I said it out loud, still sitting motionless and with my mouth open. The realization that all this is not for nothing came at once, because even a fool would understand, okay, there is one missing, things happen. But 7, it already smells like hell, no other way. After sitting at the table for some time and being all in thoughts, I was knocked out unnoticeably for myself. A knock on the window, short, not loud, but distinct, pulled me out of sleep. I thought it was just a branch from a nearby tree, or a branch from a nearby tree had crashed into the window under gusts of wind. But just in case, I decided to check. Outside the window was impenetrable darkness, only sometimes lightning flashed, embracing the entire sky, turning it into a huge web and illuminating the area for many kilometers. As you might expect, I could see nothing but darkness. However, when the lightning flashed once again, I was able to see something. The silhouettes of people. They were everywhere, and there were many of them. Some were on the road, others near the neighbor's house, a couple of them at my gate. They were just standing still, as if waiting for something. Suddenly, one of them leaned against the window. I jumped back in surprise, shrieking like a girl. My heart was pounding like a madman, and it felt like it was about to jump out of my chest and crawl away. When I looked more closely, I could see my father standing in the darkness outside the window, looking out. After a few moments, I realized something was wrong. His face, it was different, pale, and his eyes were covered with a white veil. His mouth was twisted horribly, and a red substance oozed from it, reminiscent of blood. He made incomprehensible noises, clacking his jaw and running his palm over the glass, staring at me with his lifeless eyes. Our staring lasted about a minute, and then he started pounding on the glass with his hands and head, smashing his face into meat. Then the others joined him. I was surrounded on all sides, and these devils had managed to climb up to the roof and bang on it with inhuman force. The door was taken out with its hinges, and the windows were all shattered. It would seem that you could go in, but everything stopped in a moment and there was silence. The freaks stood motionless as before, as if they had been unplugged. As for me, I just stood in the middle of the room and watched in horror and didn't even try to do anything. So, what am I gonna do? Well, I'll take a knife, stab one, stab the other, but I'm not enough for all of them, they'll eat me to death. Run away? Where? They were everywhere. I was trapped. As I looked more closely, I began to recognize these creatures as my neighbors and residents of our village. They all looked like my father, just as crooked and ugly. Among them stood the policeman. They made me go out for a walk after all. There was a rumble of thunder. The creatures that were at the threshold slowly parted, making room for her. Soon, a creepy creature appeared where the door used to be. It was a woman, or rather, it had once been a woman. Now it was a walking corpse. In some places there was no flesh, internal organs and bones were visible. The skull was covered with a few tufts of dirty and sticky hair, twisting in every direction in the wind. One eye was missing, replaced by a blackness where worms swarmed. After a short silence, the creature howled like a wolf, and all the crooked ghouls scattered. But not for long. Half a minute later, they started pouring rainwater into my house, trying to get at me. The bastards were using whatever they could get their hands on, be it buckets, ladles, basins, or pots. The spray was flying all over the house, and I ran in terror into my room and hid in a closet in the farthest corner. Now I understand everything, well, almost. The rainwater is a guide. With its help, this thing controls their minds, turning them into obedient dogs, faithfully serving their mistress and obeying any order without discussion. My only question is why they can't come into the house. But I guess I'm not allowed to know that. I've been sitting in the closet for 3 hours. I'm writing all this, and I don't know why or why not. There's the same fuss outside, the infected are carrying water like the damned, when will they get tired? There is water dripping everywhere, from walls, ceilings, and on the floor there is a lake. Water is also seeping through the left counter and the closet roof. My legs are numb. I can't write anymore, for my body won't listen at all, and I am tormented by an overwhelming desire to go outside without fear of getting wet, sick, infected, or dead. I hate the rain. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.